Jemma Birrell, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you.
Now, last year's festival was absolutely awesome. Anyone who didn't go down was an absolute mug. Just hanging out down there at the walls, just by itself, without even entering any places, the vibe was extraordinary, and it gave me a great sense of the how alive the Australian book industry and literary world is. What have we got for this year?
Well, we are going to have a wonderful atmosphere down at the Wharves again. There's a whole range of events for all different types of people and different subjects. So for people who read a lot of books, for people who don't read anything, like you can just come down and hear a range of ideas. We have a free series of lectures that are going throughout 3 days in the Curiosity Lecture Series. So that's going to be really interesting for anyone that just kind of wanders down. But there's writers from around Australia, over 400 writers from around Australia and the world. People, we have, for example, Kate Grenville and Helen Garner, Richard Flanagan, who of course won the Booker recently. And from the international author point of view, we have Alan Cumming, who's also an actor. A lot of people might know him from The Good Wife and Cabaret, which
and
he was in.
very important role in James Bond. Don't forget that.
Yes, no, that's a very, very important. But his new memoir is absolutely stunning. It's all about growing up in a really difficult family situation, and he writes about his father and his grandfather and family. So yeah, he's going to be fantastic.
You've also got two of the biggest names in crime coming down. James
We
Patterson
do.
And,
We
Michael
do.
Collins.
It's very exciting. So James Patterson is the highest selling author today. So he has 305 million copies of his books in print, which is just extraordinary. And he'll be in Sydney on the 8th of May, and so it's an early festival event in Town Hall.
Yeah.
And it's really worth coming to hear all of his secrets really about how he's become such a success. Not just his best-selling books, but his support of independent bookshops and also children's literacy and literacy in general.
Talking about kids, you've got a whole children's program.
We do. We have a wonderful children's program. We have David Williams and Anthony Horowitz headlining the kids program, as well as Andy Griffiths, one of our best-selling authors. Yeah, an absolute god. So it's a really strong program. The Sunday, the 24th of May, the whole day, there's a range of free events. So literally all ages, families with kids of all ages can come down to the wharf and just enjoy the range of activities.
We talked about the international authors. You have a habit like that. Last year, Andrew Solomon, who wasn't well known in Australia, suddenly just became this must-see person, and TV and media came down to try and get an interview with him. His book went up the charts.
It was the highest selling book of the whole festival.
It's extraordinary. Who do you think out of the international ones is going to be something like that, a real find?
Yeah, I think this is the really exciting thing about the festival, and that is the possibility of introducing writers who readers might not have heard of before, and showing new work and introducing new work into Australia. It's very exciting, even though there's always people in the know about these wonderful writers, of course.
Yeah.
But putting them centre stage is a wonderful thing, like it was with Andrew Solomon. So this year there's a few different people. We have the wonderful Mohsen Hamid, who is giving our opening address, and a lot of readers might know his work from The Reluctant Fundamentalist. That did very well in Moth Smoke. He's got a new book of essays called Civilization and Discontent, and it's brilliant. Really
seems to be right on the money, that title.
It is. There's some really, really fascinating and entertaining authors coming this year. We have David Mitchell, who a lot of people might know from Cloud Atlas. I love that book. His new book, The Bone Clocks, is even better. So he's coming from London, and he'll be speaking about that in City Recital Hall. I really recommend it. Another writer is Ben Ockery, who's coming. Now, Ben Ockery won the Booker Prize a long time ago for The Famished Road, which is one of those books that I've treasured. I loved every bit of it when I read it, and he's written various novels since then. It's almost hard to kind of summarise, but there's also a writer who's very interesting. He's a fascinating thinker. He writes a lot about our relationship with the internet, and that is Douglas Coupland.
Oh,
Now,
Jesus.
Douglas Coupland is the man who coined the term Generation X. He's written lots of different novels. Generation X was probably one of the most famous. Microsurfs is another one. And he's got some new books, as I said, kind of essays looking at this complex, strange relationship we have with the net. So he's in the big How to Live panel in Town Hall, which I really recommend to everyone.
Who else is in that?
Paul Dolan on happiness. We have Hugh Mackay.
Love Hugh.
Hugh is fabulous. I do too. And he's going to be talking about the art of belonging and community as part of his book. I mean, I loved Anne Mann's book as well, looking at narcissism and celebrity culture. She's on that panel. There is also Lee Ann Hennian, who has got a new book called Phenomena. She travels around the globe looking for the world's most interesting natural phenomena. For example, butterfly migrations and a whole range of different kind of phenomena that she goes and explores. So that's going to be a very key event for the festival. And I also would love to mention an event in City Recital Hall, which is Stories That Defined a Decade. So we have some phenomenal journalists at the festival this year, including Nick Davies, who's in this panel, and he wrote Hack Attack. So he was actually the journalist who was responsible who unearthed the whole phone hacking, the whole phone hacking story. Exactly. So he's a very, very interesting and important journalist. He's going to be alongside Christina Lamb, who has been a foreign correspondent in the Middle East for many years, for 28 years actually.
It's a long tour.
It's a long time. And Christina Lamb is the woman who wrote with Malala her memoir. So Malala, who won the Nobel Prize, of course. And also Asne Sayestad will be in that panel. And Asne, a lot of people will know from The Bookseller of Kabul, which was a bestseller around the world. And her new book, One of Us, is looking at Anders Breivik, who is that mass murderer who was in Norway, who just committed that atrocious crime in Norway. So she's really kind of examined that from all different perspectives.
Imagine Helen Mcdonald and her in a room together.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to Mohsen Hamid, other writers I think that people are really going to enjoy discovering, one in particular is Helen Mcdonald. Now, in the UK, Helen Mcdonald won the Samuel Johnson Award for Non-Fiction and the Costa, so they're two really major awards in England. And her book, H is for Hawk, is just stunning. Anyone who reads it is absolutely gobsmacked by how beautifully written it is and how wise, really. It's a book about grief. She also trains a goshawk, and she's mourning the death of her father. And it's also a love song to the English countryside. Beautifully written.
There are tremors about that book coming through the readership in Australia already, like in anticipation.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
It's a word of mouth book at the moment, being passed around.
Yeah.
So there's a theme for the whole festival this year. It's How to Live, is that right?
Yes, so the theme of the festival is How to Live, and it really, it's a theme that I thought was really something that was, you could see kind of a thread throughout different books that were being published, and more generally in our culture. It's something that we're hungry to know more about. We're hungry to find out about happiness. What is happiness? For example, we have Paul Dolan, who's writing about that in his new book. But it's not just happiness. You know, we're ranging from spirituality, happiness, to mortality. With Atul Gawande, for example, who's speaking at the Opera House with his new book, Being Mortal, looking at our ageing population and looking at questioning the way we do things and how we actually need concrete change after all the experiences that he's had in the medical system as a surgeon coming from Boston. So,
I know, thinking of mortality, I remember one of the things that I noticed on the list of things coming up is the mortician.
We do. We have Kaitlin Doty, who is a mortician. She's coming from Los Angeles. And she is a fascinating character. I really like the way that she wholeheartedly brings a discussion of death into popular culture. I think this is a subject that we don't really talk much about, and it's important. it's important for us to know more about what happens to the body, what happens to us. I mean, this is something that we all are going to be confronted with, and Kaitlin so beautifully tells us about really the reality of death. You know, she had a very popular web series actually, so she kind of kicked off with that, and smart, fascinating woman. So she's going to be in this great event with Adam Spencer as well, and Dr. Carl, called the Night of the Nerds. So she'll be talking about death more closely. Yeah.
There's one thing that I'm looking forward to personally, and that's Jonathan Bate and John Bell talking about Shakespeare. You've got this actor and producer and director who's spent his life in Shakespeare's works.
Oh, he's
and you've got this
phenomenal.
academic who's written one of my favourite books, and talking about Shakespeare. It sounds like it's going to be fascinating.
I think that'll be really good. One thing I really wanted to do this year was to have a whole range of series to help people navigate the program and get in and be able to kind of see the structure and the thinking, and you know, find some really interesting events as a result of that. So there's the Writers on Writers series, including John Bell and Jonathan Bate on Shakespeare. There's also Daniel Mendelsohn and David Malouf on the classics. So, and there's another event on Rilke, for example. So that's the Writers on Writers series. Then there's the Curiosity Lecture series. You know, people speaking. There's one woman talking about hipsters. We have Robert Desai talking about his love of Enid Blyton.
You can talk about anything, but that's incredible.
Absolutely unforgettable. He's also doing an event around his new book, which is stunning. I love it. So we have Coffee and Papers. That's a free event at the theatre bar at the end of the wharf every morning. You can come down and listen to journalists and authors from the festival talking about different issues, relevant issues in the papers.
Jemma, what books can reading groups and people who are very interested in getting sort of ahead of the game, what are the suggestions they read before they go to the Sydney Writers Festival?
Oh, I'd love to go through a range of writers. I think that, first of all, Aimee Blume, who is an American writer, her novel is Lucky Us, and it is an absolute page-turner, beautifully written, about love and family, quite a wild story that, kind of goes across different continents and people's life stories. Fantastic. So first of all, Aimee Blume. Secondly, Zia Haider Rahman, who wrote this absolutely stunning, again traversing different continents, and in the light of what we know is the name of his book, raved about by all the critics. Beautifully written, the prose is stunning, but it's a good story. So I will also, I really think that everyone should read Kate Grenville's new book, and Helen Garner's True Crime, as we were talking about before. Helen Garner's latest one as well. I mean, that is just, I think all of her books are classics, as with Kate Grenville. And if you haven't read Richard Flanagan's The Narrow Road to the Deep North, that's just absolutely obligatory, after winning the Booker, of course. And the event he's going to have with Jennifer Byrne in Town Hall this year will be very special. So
he speaks so well.
He really does. I think he's such a wise and interesting man. So I'm really looking forward to that. Another novel that I'll mention that I loved and I couldn't put it down was Malcolm Knox's new novel, The Wonder Lover. And I read it some time ago in manuscript form, and I was so excited about it. I wanted to talk to everyone that I met, because it was so. There was something kind of almost fabulesque and magical about it, but also the story is just, this man with 3 wives. It's intriguing, and so I really recommend that. And yes, last of all, I will say Anthony Horowitz, brilliant, Moriarty, and then keep your eye out for his new Bond novel. And also Helen Mcdonald's H is for Hawk.
So where can people go and see the program?
They can go onto our website, which is swf.org.au. They can also call up our office and we can send them a physical copy of the program if that's easier. I always like physical copies, whether it be books or... so that's probably the best thing, yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in and speaking with us, Jemma.
That's a pleasure. I
can't wait for going down there and hanging out again for another week of literature. good friends. I mean, the other thing is you catch up with friends down there.
You do. I think what you say about the whole feeling of the festival, it is unlike anything else. When I took this job, I'd been out of the country for about 8 years, so I came back and was also attending the festival for the first time. This is 2 years ago. The atmosphere is just extraordinary, you know, everyone milling around, sitting in the sun, reading books, having a glass of wine. We have a new Hemingway bar as well. So we have a whole range of evenings of events with live music that people can come to in the Hemingway bar. And we have a series of evening, you know, a night of laughs, which is comedy, a night of listening, which is looking at podcasting.
It sounds extraordinary. This is going to be so much fun.
There is. There's a whole range of kind of great events.
I think if anyone's looking for Andrew and I, we'll be in the Hemingway bar.
Good. That's good. No, I think it will be fun. There's writers' cocktails and things like that.
Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Pleasure.